The struggles to win a World Cup begin years before setting foot on a pitch. This is the tragic story of football's greatest dribbler, who overcame being a cripple boy to rise to the highest scene of football. Garrincha, a mere nickname which, on its own, is greater than many real names in football put together. You know Pelé as one of the greatest players of all time. Some would even straight up call him the OG GOAT. But here's the catch. There are quite a number of things that Garrincha did during his career that Pelé could never even attempt. But Garrincha was so troubled, and those problems off the pitch turned out to really affect his football legacy and even led to his ultimate demise. Here's the story of the little bird. Born in Magé, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, on October 28, 1933, to a family of no less than 12 siblings, the little boy got his nickname Garrincha from his sister Rosa. Garrincha in English is little bird, and Rosa started calling him that because of how small and carefree he was as a child. I wish I could say that was a sign that he was destined for great things, but everything about him, his background and upbringing, seemed to point at him being anything but great. He grew up poor and was raised by an alcoholic father who used to always get drunk on spirit. And later in Garrincha's life, we would find out that the apple truly does not fall far from the tree. Even biology was not fair on the little Brazilian boy. He was basically a crippled child. Garrincha was born with his left leg 6 centimeters longer than the right, and that right leg turned inward while his left turned outward. All that led a doctor to declare him a crippled child. You would think that for a kid to go on to become a footballing superstar, the bare minimum would be for him not to be crippled. But Garrincha was so special that against the numerous odds, he still burst into the Brazilian football scene as a teenage sensation. Those crippled legs would go on to earn him the nickname among football fans in Brazil, bent-legged angel. Unlike many footballers these days, Garrincha started a family before he started his footballing career. But from the day he picked up a ball, the entire world just knew. He was something different. You want to know how he got his first professional contract? Simple. By embarrassing an already established Brazilian national team defender at the time. Garrincha dribbled the ball through the legs of Nilton Santos so easily, and the Botafogo defender was so dazzled by the little bird that he insisted his team to sign him. They did, and they most certainly did not regret it. At a time when wingers dominated football's attacking scene, Garrincha hit the ground running. On the 19th of July 1953, just aged 19, he played his first game for Botafogo's senior team. And guess what? He scored a hat trick. First game as a senior professional footballer, and he netted 3 times. It was an incredible start, but it was just the start nonetheless. Garrincha went on to keep dazzling the entire world with his dribbling skills and goal-scoring ability. Then there was the big shock in 1954. Everyone naturally expected the youngster, who was 20 at the time, to be named in the Brazil squad for the 1954 World Cup in Switzerland. But he wasn't. Brazilians were definitely shocked, and that shock then developed into anger. Without their wonder kid, they were knocked out in the second round of the World Cup. Therefore, for the 1958 edition in Sweden, Vicente Feola, the Brazil national team coach at the time, knew Garrincha had to be included. And it was not just a consolation for missing the previous tournament. The boy was still in blazing form. Just a year earlier, he scored 20 goals in 26 appearances to help Botafogo clinch the Campeonato Carioca, the football championship in Rio de Janeiro. He was simply a must-pick. That tournament, Mané Garrincha helped Brazil win their very first World Cup. But that was not his year. 1958 belonged to a certain 18-year-old who had just burst into the scene and went by the name of Pelé. He may not have been the main man for Brazil, but Garrincha was so integral to that World Cup success that he was named in the all-star team of that tournament. Now, Pelé might have stolen the show in '58, but 1962 was Garrincha's and nobody else could share the stage with him. He won the World Cup in a way that nobody else had done before, not even Pelé. As a matter of fact, Pelé contributed close to nothing to Brazil's World Cup success that year. He got injured early in the tournament and as a result, only featured in the first 2 games. Therefore, it was all Garrincha. The little bird was whom all the Brazilians had to look up to, and he didn't disappoint at all. Garrincha couldn't find the net until the quarterfinal, but once he started scoring, he simply could not stop. He went on to win the Golden Boot, helping Brazil to back-to-back finals. Before the final against Czechoslovakia, Garrincha suffered from a very high fever, but he insisted on playing and he went on to help Brazil win the trophy while he himself clinched the Golden Ball. He became the first player to win the World Cup, the Golden Boot, and the Golden Ball all in the same tournament. He was absolutely dazzling, the sheer definition of joga bonito. The 1962 World Cup was easily the peak of Garrincha's career. He was 29 during that tournament, and after then, a lingering knee injury led to his gradual decline. He was called up for the 1966 World Cup age 33, but he was already a shadow of himself. The man whom many referred to as the greatest dribbler of all time was no longer that guy. He ended his international career after Brazil's 3-1 loss to Hungary in the group stage, sending the back-to-back champions to the list of knocked-out teams. That game against Hungary was the first time Garrincha lost a game playing for the Brazilian national team, and obviously, it was his last. He would go on to play for 10 more years, but only at a club level. He retired after he became a grandfather for the first time, because, according to him, being a granddad and still playing professional football felt weird. Now, while Garrincha was approaching his highest heights in his footballing career, he was simultaneously beginning to sink to his lowest lows in his life. Just like his father, he had become an alcoholic and would often get drunk on spirits. He never seemed to be able to get his drinking problem under check, and it had the most brutal repercussions, including his own mother-in-law's death. Yes, Garrincha was responsible for the death of his wife's mother. The superstar's drinking habit always landed him in trouble, the major one being drunk driving. On one fateful date in April of 1969, Garrincha was drunk driving yet again, but this time he was with his mother-in-law. He drove straight into a lorry and crashed the car. While he survived, his wife's mother did not. I wish I could say that made him turn a new leaf, but it didn't. The man just kept going deeper and deeper into self-destruction. In 1977, his wife left him after an episode of domestic violence. He was also known to have had many affairs and is said to have fathered no less than 14 children. Garrincha just kept sinking lower and lower, and there was absolutely no saving for him. He gradually became lonely, broke, and very unhappy. In his last few years, he was a forgotten hero more than anything else. He started to get really sick in the late 70s and early 80s due to complications from his chronic alcoholism. In 1982, he was in and out of the hospital 8 times, and soon he fell into an alcoholic coma. In January 1983, the little bird finally crashed hard into the ground, never to soar again. The cause of his death, cirrhosis of the liver. He never came out of that coma. Although the final few years of his life were a horror show, fans, football players, and former colleagues all came out to pay their last respects to one of the greatest players to have ever lived. He was called the joy of people, and on his epitaph reads, "Here rests in peace the one who was the joy of the people, Mane Garrincha." But I still think the name that best captures the life and times of Garrincha on and off the pitch is the title of the book Brazilian author Rui Castro wrote about him, Lonely Star. No doubt, he was an absolute superstar, but Manuel Francisco dos Santos had excesses and inadequacies that made him so lonely in his final years on earth. Personally, I like to remember him for the magic he contributed to the history of the beautiful game. But if you guys enjoy our content, please consider watching some of our other videos. Until I see you guys again, keep footing, futboleros.